Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Fan Fuel Motorsports Podcast, a podcast where fans fuel talk about motorsport. This week, we saw the return of IndyCar and a trip out west again this year for the NASCAR Cup and Xfinity Series. But let's go ahead and get on into it. So I just noticed that we're all wearing red. So I guess we got the memo this week that we're supposed to do that. Mine is not a merch shirt, but it looks like rocking 2311 for Nathan and Ryan Blaney for Colton. Without getting into the Auto Club stuff, let's go ahead and go down to St. Petersburg for the IndyCar opener. IndyCar is back, and that probably means that you, like myself, think that the American motorsport scene is finally back in full swing. So, Nathan, what did you think about the IndyCar season opener?
Oh man, I thought it was a good race. Usually people get on street circuits for not being able to pass and all that kind of stuff, but it was a surprisingly good race. It went down to the end. I didn't think it was, but some stuff happened with strategy. Pelot kind of moved up through the pits, and that was that. I thought it was fun because the car in the front wasn't always the fastest. I think McLaughlin was kind of managing his race, and toward the end, he kind of knew that Pelot wasn't going to be able to get past him in certain corners, so he wasn't pushing 100%, but he was just pushing enough to stay ahead of him. So I think the race was a lot better than I expected.
Yeah, it was a pretty good race. I think the first couple of laps were really intense. You bring up the fact that passing is not really a thing you think of on these street circuits, but I think Pato O'Ward, he passed a couple of cars on the first lap, more than a couple if you watched, But I remember on lap one or two, they said that prior to the race that you couldn't go too wide through the parking lot section by the stadium, and then all of a sudden he was making passes through the S's on the parking lot section. So a very good race overall, and something very important, I guess, to the whole world's motorsport scene. If you guys have been watching for a while, you know that I'm a big supercars fan. So seeing Scott McLaughlin come out there as a Kiwi from a non-traditional starting spot for an American open wheel scene and just go blister them all weekend, that was incredible to me.
Yeah, I thought it was super cool because everybody knew that he was good in supercars, and people wanted him in NASCAR for a while, and their plan before COVID was to get him to the U.S. in some way, shape, or form. And I think they had him test at Sebring before COVID hit. He was really quick. They were going to have him do the Indy GP before COVID hit, and that didn't happen. So they brought him to St. Pete, I think it was in 2020 at the end of the year. And ever since then, they gave him a full-time ride. He learned pretty well last year. I did not expect him to win the first race this year because I think it's his third time coming back to St. Pete. So
Yeah.
I think it's a good sign because that means if he's come back to these tracks second time, third time, then it seems like he just picks up quick.
Yeah, so that's something that we'll be looking forward to with not only him but his other two rookie class members from last year, with the now Andretti Autosport driver of Romain Grosjean, and then Jimmy Johnson, who is going to be driving all season this year. Let's hope he has some better luck on the ovals. He still didn't look too fast down in St. Pete, but he did make some big noise up front. And Nathan, if you want to explain some of that.
Yeah. Well, toward the end, he and a couple other cars were about to get lapped, and obviously there's no blue flag rules in IndyCar, so they could fight it. And he did fight for quite a while to try and stay ahead of McLaughlin because his teammate was catching McLaughlin. Pelot kind of closed up 2 seconds in the time he spent behind Johnson. So ever since the top two lapped him, then it was about Power, and Power was in third. And I think what upset Power is that he was still fighting despite the fact that the top two had already put him a lap down. And I think Power says something along the lines of, I hope the TV's getting a sponsor for him or something like that. So I don't know. It's interesting. I do think that they were kind of careful around him compared to the other lap cars. I noticed that they were really cautious around Calderon was one of them, and Johnson was the other one. Like, the leaders did not want to get near them. So I don't know. I thought it was really interesting because I know it's normal to fight when you're about to go a lap down, but fighting after you've been lapped, it's kind of different. I didn't expect that.
Well, I mean, it's a little bit of ebb and flow type thing. We see people do that in NASCAR all the time, just get in the way of the lead lap cars, even when they're in a fight. So, I mean, it's just something you have to deal with the motorsport. You would think that as a 7-time Cup champion, having to deal with that himself, Jimmy Johnson would have not done that. But hey, he's learning the cars still. I mean, he's out there just to have fun. I'm not sure he's ever going to be someone that we see make a championship run. So, I mean, he's bringing money to the sport. So.
Yeah. Oh, Colton's muted. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was going to say anything.
No, sorry. I was trying to listen for a noise out there.
Yeah, I'm assuming that you did not watch Colton.
I watched like the last 7 or 8 laps. I really didn't catch much of it. I turned it on right as I heard him talking about Jimmy Johnson. I didn't see the incident. I heard him talking about it though. Then I just watched Pillow trying to hunt him down. That was about all I watched. I honestly forgot that it was on until I saw something on Twitter about it, and then by then it was too late.
Yeah. Well, if you got Peacock, you can watch it on a replay with ads though. So even if you're paying for it, we'll get into that at a later date. So after we go out from here, we'll go to Auto Club. And before we get too far in Auto Club, I do want to say sorry to anyone who is watching us last week when we did our picks, because we had a bit of chaos and turmoil for all 4 of our picks last week. So I guess you guys can go ahead and say what happened to your 2 picks. We'll throw Jared and mine in later.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'll start. I had Ross Chastain. I didn't really want to use a heavy hitter on race 2, so I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna throw it out there. It's a worn out track. He likes worn out tracks. Why not? And goes head on in the wall in like 10 minutes of practice. Backup car. I was like, that's great. So obviously in the race, I wasn't expecting much from him, but he made it into the top 10 via attrition, which is pretty impressive. And I was thinking at that point, like, okay, this is way better than I thought. And then toward the end, he was running 6th or 7th, and he just loops it off 4. And it just so happens that he gets stuck and he loses 5 or 6 laps because his tires are flat. So I feel like I was in position to get some good points there on a day where I wasn't expecting any points. And I end up having him finish behind the guys that hit the wall. So,
yeah.
I had Bowman, and Bowman just kind of Bowman. He didn't have a terribly eventful day. He just kind of did what I expect him to do, which being the least talented Hendrick driver was finish 25th. So it wasn't a great day. I thought he would do a little bit better than that, being that his fans kind of ride him hard that he got 4 wins last year, but damn, 3 of those wins were given to him.
Yeah, I think he bounced off the wall toward the end. I think.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Because there was like 5 or 6 cars that did.
Yeah, he was just kind of having an off day. I don't usually expect him to run that far back. Otherwise, I wouldn't have picked him.
Like 10th maybe or something when he hit the wall?
Yeah, he was running right outside the top 10 for a really good chunk of the day.
Like he kind of just stagnated.
Yeah, and just kind of floated back at the end. So it wouldn't surprise me if he did touch the wall a little bit. But I don't have to pick him again. So
yeah, and ironically, we were all messaging as we do throughout all the races on our group text. Our guys just kept dropping like flies, and
yeah,
I'm like, all right, Colton, the 48 is next, and we get down there to like 32 or 22 to go, whichever lap it was, and the 48 pops the wall.
Yep.
and I just roll over laughing because
I remember that because I texted you immediately.
Yeah. You said Ross is next, and then he was next.
Yeah. It was fun, but also I had to do it because I picked Tyler Reddick. I know he's my second favorite Cup driver, right? I know he's going to do good at a worn-out surface and with a car that can actually run the top, which is what he loves to do. He was able to rip the top all day. That was his race to lose, and he didn't lose it. William Byron lost it for him. I mean, come on, man. The heartbreak at that moment, I was like, oh, my God, I'm just glad that the next-gen car is a little bit more resilient and it didn't end his day because he had that flat tire and he was nursing it back, and then all of a sudden that rainbow car just, drilled him for no good reason. I don't know if it was a spotter error or a driver error. I don't know, but it was heartbreaking. And at that point, I was like, well, shit. And then once it started happening to everybody else, it was okay. But Tyler Reddick coming home, on the lead lap helped me. I wound up finishing second to our boy Jared, who is busy again tonight. Who picked Eric Almirola, who I thought was a guy that was going to be a throwaway pick, to be honest, at this track
Yeah, I have some
specifically.
plans for him, but I don't want
Yeah.
to say where.
I mean, I would assume that he would have been a good pick at a Michigan or one of the flat mile tracks like Gateway or
Right.
New Hampshire.
Loudon, yeah.
But I mean, this was not a track that I pegged him to do good at. He made that massive save in practice,
Another one in
saved
the
it
race.
again in the race, and wound up, even though he was off the lead lap after that spin, coming back and kicking all our asses. So without further ado, let's go ahead and skip over to next week with our picks for Las Vegas and the Pinto 400.
Yeah, so looks like I'm going first. This is kind of strange. I've never gone first this early in the year, so I figured I might as well just set the
hold
tone.
up. Before you even go, but did you guys hear this man? I've never gone first this early in the year. He's out here being
We've only done it
cocky
1
and
year.
shit.
We've only done it 1 year.
He's out here being cocky because he beat my ass last year at this stuff. So
I
go ahead, Nathan.
never like you're just interpreting it that way. But
Yeah.
what I was saying is that I'm picking a guy that I feel like is due for a Vegas win. I know that the rules packages might not correlate the same way, but if you go back to 2018, the last couple of races before the high downforce package came in, all the Penske cars typically run really good at this track, regardless of the package. And Ryan Blaney was somewhere in the top 5 in that crazy race back in 2018. And throughout the whole 550 package era, he was always top 5, top 10. Probably should have won a couple of Vegas races, but he didn't. So I think I'm going to go with him this year. He ran really good the other day. So, or not the other day, last week, my bad. But I think if I'm going to pick first, I might as well pick somebody that's like an on paper favorite.
I'm going to go with the guy who I think had the biggest comeback last week. Got himself into a huge hole early. I think he was at 1.6 laps down. Came back, got a ton of lucky cautions to get back on the lead lap. Fought his way back to a top 15 finish. He's won at Vegas before. Vegas native. I'm going Kyle Effin Busch.
All right. Those are two pretty good picks, especially Nathan's, because unlike these other guys, I've planned my whole season out, and I pegged for this Vegas race Ryan Blaney. So he stole that pick right out from under me. I do agree that the Penske cars have been very strong over there on the West Coast for the Las Vegas races. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go with a teammate that was in the booth with Ryan Blaney last week, and that is Joey Logano. And their former teammate, Brad Keselowski, in the number 6 car for RFK Racing, is Jared's pick. So we'll have 3 Penske and or former Penske drivers. So we were all thinking along the same lines. And Kyle fucking Busch. So sorry to any fans of any of those 4 drivers. We're probably going to add to their attrition on Sunday, but we'll see what happens when we come to the Las Vegas.
Hey, we don't count race points. We just got to beat each other.
You're
Ryan
right.
Blaney's probably blown an engine on lap 5. I call it now.
Yeah.
So
fucking dare, Nate.
So we'll see if these fan fuel picks are going to be poisonous like they were at Auto Club. But if not, hopefully we'll see a good race Sunday. We'll get to that a little bit later in the show. Auto Club, though, back after 2 seasons. We saw the 88 of Alex Bowman win there, and the curse of Bowman is that we don't go to tracks after he wins, and they cursed him on Sunday by having that really ugly plaque being made for him to be put on the Hall of Champions. But I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, we have not been to this massive 2-mile rough 24-year-old surface in 2 years. I mean, what was y'all's thoughts going in, and what were your general opinions about the race?
Oh, man. First of all, I thought it exceeded my expectations because it's always been one of my favorite tracks. And I had to listen to people on Twitter, like 12-year-olds for the last 2 years, say, oh, Auto Club's overrated because Truex won there by 10 seconds in 2018. And, after all this time, I finally got proven right. Auto Club is a great racetrack as long as the cars are good. So I was happy with it. I thought it was fun seeing the drivers move around. I thought it was fun seeing the drivers lift really early because that if this was 2 years ago, they'd probably be lifting 500 yards later than they actually would now, if at all. So it's just big It's big. Like, it's big for me because I love seeing that type of racing.
I need to apologize to Auto Club because I was a huge F this track turned into a short track guy 2 weeks ago. Auto Club was never one of my favorite tracks. I always respected it just because it was so wide and there were so many different grooves. But up until I'd say like 2018, 2019, I really didn't like it. I was very skeptical going into it, especially here in the resin, especially hearing how they knocked down some of the bumps in the backstretch, which it didn't look like they fucking did at all.
Yeah.
No.
This was a fantastic race. I really liked it. You saw the majority of guys riding up alongside the wall. I think a lot of that is because of what we saw in practice with immediately cars snapping around loose on the entrance or the exit of 4. But you could also fan down to the bottom and get a good run going and slide up and pass, which was nice to see after the 550 package. I thought it was a great race. It's probably one of the best races I've seen in at least a few years, at least since they brought in the 550 package. I got nothing bad to say other than Bowman shit the bed.
Yeah.
The same with
Well,
Chastain. He was up there 6th, and I was like, man, come on. You know, I was like, he can get a top 5 out of this. Spins. And because he gets stuck, he ends up finishing behind the guys that hit the wall. So, yeah, did not go well.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you know me, you know I like multi-group racing. You know I like being able to have options. And Auto Club has always been one of my favorite tracks. Probably around the COT era is when it finally started blooming into a multi-groove racetrack, and it wasn't just bottom feeding. Once they got about 12 to 15 years on the surface, it started going really, really great for someone like me, you know. And we haven't had cars that can do anything but bottom feed for the past 3 or 4 years, and even maybe back to 2015 at some racetracks. So seeing this kind of a race where they were going through all 6 lanes, depending on what time they were in the run, it was just very, very good to me. So I'm happy it's back. I did mention, like Colton said, but they were going to put the resin on there this weekend, and I was kind of bitching about that on Twitter. I was like, this is stupid. And didn't even notice it. Wasn't a factor. It probably helped produce some of that good racing because they put more rubber down. Yeah. So it's not PJ1. Yeah. It's not PJ1, so I'm happy. With that being said, let's go to Saturday before we start delving deeply into the Cup race. And the Xfinity race was
fucking A.
It was a race.
Oh yeah.
So it was fun for the first 3 hours. But I'm gonna let you guys speak kind of your opinions on it. But for me, it was just way too long.
First of all, I guess I could say that it's pretty cool seeing Cole Custer win. I know he's a Cup guy, but he won for SS Greenlight Racing, which is not really normal. And it came after his teammate DNQ'd. So that was kind of a cool thing for the team to get something even after one of their cars didn't make the race. I guess second of all, I mean, I had free time, so I was all right with them continuing the race after he hit the sand barrels. So I was like, whatever, you know, they got lights. It'll be 30 minutes. But I did think it was interesting that Alfredo had a chance with that strategy. He got lucky for a little bit, but it seems like all the cautions just equalized his tires, and then he couldn't really do anything at that point.
Yeah, I agree. That race was far too long, and especially during that red flag, they should have just called it.
No, I don't. I mean, if they get lights, there's no.
See,
like I had enough time to go get some fucking ice cream and come back.
Yeah, so we're sitting there, and it's 5 or 6 minutes into this red flag, and Colton's like, "Damn, I'm gonna go to Dairy Queen." He comes back, and they're still under red. 22 minutes later, I counted it. I am going to bring something up that is going to probably lose me a lot of fans if I have any watching right now. I think I have grown out of green, white checkers. I think that this race on Saturday has made it, to me, seem like we don't need those anymore. I was satisfied with the race, and they did not call it. And when they said that Custer did not take the white and we had to wait 32 minutes before getting back rolling again, I think that was excessive. That did nothing for me. The finish was bland. It would have been the same either way. to me, I'm ready for them to. I'm ready for them to either cap these green white checkers or get rid of them completely.
Yeah, I mean, I get where you're coming from. I do. I'm a purist at heart, but I do think that green white checkers are like the one thing that I can tolerate, which is kind of interesting. So I'm fine with them if they want to do unlimited, whatever. I mean, if it takes an hour, so be it. But I'm also fine if they were to just go back to what they did and say, "Here's you get 3 attempts, whatever." So,
Alex, I know we're all entitled to our own opinion, but yours is fucking wrong. I love green white checkers. I do wish there was some sort of circumstance to it, though. Like in this circumstance, I really would have loved for them to say, okay, this is going to be it. This is going to take us 40 minutes to clean this shit up. But Auto Club does have lights. So I get both sides of it. Just being that I was trying to do shit around the house. Like I said,
it's
20
just
plus minutes it took me to go get an ice cream.
It's not okay. So
different right now. I
for
love
someone who likes racing, myself, I don't really give a shit if we throw a yellow and end their caution. I really don't.
I'm fine with it for IndyCar F1. It's just like I've grown up on the green white checkers. You know, like I didn't grow up in the era.
Right, and I think that's a problem from my standpoint because NASCAR has made the fans kind of eager to have these green white checkered finishes. We've had too many controversies with them to not be unlimited, so we kind of have to be unlimited. But at this point, I don't care for them. I mean, there was no reason for that race to continue. They could have just said that the yellow happened like 3 feet into his car after his nose went under the flag stand. Everyone would have went away feeling happy and indifferent to the way they felt when Cole Custer still won 2 laps later without an exciting green white checkered finish. So I don't know. It was a waste of time. And after being at the longest cup race in history at Talladega, that was 7 hours and 42 minutes long. I want to say it was 2 Octobers ago. I don't give a shit anymore. I would rather see a race end under caution because circumstances happened than sit around for 3 hours trying to finish a race. And I know that it wasn't 3 hours, but still, 40 minutes, that's ridiculous.
Like I said, I get both sides of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just don't want them to go back to a fucking overtime line.
Oh my gosh, no, we're done with that.
The only way to
I don't even understand why they did that.
Like you talked about the Custer, you know, he was so many feet from the line when they called the caution. They could just put a line down at the entrance pit road and say, if you get to this line, it's going to be over. But then
what's the point of the white flag?
Overtime line. Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm like, all right, we'll just keep resetting them, you know.
See, because
I didn't like this last weekend. I did not like that.
I think that we should go to the scheduled distance, and I know that I'm the more pure than the NASCAR stuff for most fans nowadays because of what we've been through in the last 15 years. But I would not mind them going the distance, but maybe red flagging during the last 10% of the race or not counting caution laps during the last 5% of the race. Something like that where it could still lead to a green white checkered where we do something like that, but I don't know. If a red flag comes out after we go into a green white checkered, I think that should end the race. I think that would be the rule that I would put in. If we're going to have a red after we've attempted one green white checkered, just throw it out.
Well, and you make up a good point. Like Daytona, right? We saw Myatt Snyder's wreck. What if that was a 2 to go and not the last?
Right.
You
like
know,
if that happened after halfway, they would have ended it.
Yeah,
for sure.
So
because it would take like 3 hours.
The sand barrels.
I mean, the sand barrels versus a whole catch fence are 2 different things.
They're different, but they're still a super lengthy repair.
Right, but they've done longer red flags for other stuff before, like the jet dryer and whatnot.
Yeah, but they didn't. Right. But the red flag for the jet dryer wasn't for a green white checkered. I think once we've went the distance, I think a red flag should end the race, regardless of what lap it is.
I think
that would fix
compromise.
my problem with what happened this weekend in Xfinity, and I think that would. I think that would, that would be the same sentiment to me as going the distance and just calling it. I think that would be a very good compromise for me. Was there anything else that you guys saw on the Xfinity side of things before we move on to Cup?
Not really. I thought it was interesting though that the SS Greenlight or probably SHR Alliance car was able to win like that. Like it was pure pace, so I just found it interesting.
They had one of them win the race and one of them DNQ. So that tells you the issue with the team is with the nut that connects the pedals to the steering wheel.
So
it was not a good look.
So did you guys see on Twitter, Joe Graff Jr. was the driver of the DNQ'd car. He DNQ'd in the 21 Xfinity car. I don't know if it was last year or 2018. And his teammate went on to win that race. I don't remember which race it was or which.
It was Michigan,
which year
I think, 2019.
Michigan? Okay. So, see, Nathan's over here. He's our encyclopedia of racing. So, I appreciate that.
Yep.
And shout out to DQ because that's where you went and got your ice cream during that red flag. So
yeah, I'm just drinking water, but
money and being popular on Twitter do not make you a good race car driver.
Right. We had that discussion about Drew Dollar last week, though, when it comes to stuff like that. So I don't think we need to get back into it.
Just pick one a week and just keep it going.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll go to Cup on Sunday, and I do want to say, if you know what I'm alluding to, this was an EA Sports Certified Classic. I mean, hands down, this was an instant classic for NASCAR. I think it was after the Coke 600 last year. The three of us had a discussion about when is the last time, and since we've been to this 550 package, have we had a race that was an instant classic? We had that discussion between the three of us, and I don't think any of us could say anything. Obviously, the Bristol race happened last year. We'll change our minds on that. But
like every classic race last year was 750. Yeah. Darlington, Bristol.
Classic race. Do you guys agree with that statement? This was an instant classic.
Yeah, I think so. I think that a lot of it, what also helped it is, I guess, like he said, the atmosphere around it. It's something that NASCAR fans had waited for so long. I think even if the race wasn't as good as it actually was on Sunday, that people still would have loved it just because they anticipated this for so long after 2 years of sitting through the 550 package. 3 years, make that, sorry. But it's kind of like when NASCAR came back from COVID sort of thing. Like, even if it wasn't the best race, you were just happy to see it back. And I was just, even if the race was terrible, I would have been happy to see the racing back because it was multi-groove racing. The cars were harder to drive. I think the race being that good was awesome. So I think it's going to be perfect because there was a lot of different leaders. I think there was something like 27 different cars ran in the top 10 in that race. You had arguably Eric Jones and Tyler Reddick. They probably would have had either one of them would have been an upset win. So, I mean, I don't really know what more you could ask for in a race.
Well, I think that the race was amazing. We have some points we're obviously going to hit later on. But for me, it just seemed like the classic NASCAR was back. We had drivers going from the back to the front, from the front to the back. We had tire wear. We would have got the fuel mileage, but we had so many cautions that we didn't get to that point. But, I mean, it was just a classic NASCAR race. I was not ever bored. I was always in tune with the race, and it was so refreshing being able to see drivers just spread themselves throughout the field. It was kind of like a cycle all race long. We had people up front that we don't see up front stereotypically, and I thought that was very refreshing and reminded me of those early 2000s NASCAR days, the late stage of the Gen 4 era, where we saw just whoever could show up with a good setup come and win, and didn't regardless of what engine or who they were driving for. So I'm thinking the next gen car has gotten us back to that point. Colton, though, before we get into our main points, we did see something that we talked about on our on our text during the race, and I think you wanted to bring that up
Yeah,
today.
because it pissed me off. In all honesty, there is a trend developing over the past several months of the driver, the number 9, altering finishes. That spin he had on Sunday had all the looks of being an intentional spin.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh
You
yeah,
could see he had white on his gloves. You could see him jerk the wheel. And when he
Right.
spun around, you didn't see him correct the wheel. He just
Just
did
like,
a Clint Boyer and locked the wheel and just let it rotate around. First off, if you're going to spin out on purpose or if you're going to spin someone on purpose, flashbacks to Carl Edwards, Keselowski at Atlanta, don't wear white fucking gloves. Make sure no one can see you, all right? And
right.
don't make it so obvious. He was
Oh, yeah.
upset. I don't know, he probably broke something on his car. But he didn't want to lose all the track position and the laps down after the incident with Kyle Larson. I get it. You're pissed off. Your teammate just put you in the wall. But he did the same shit at Bristol. He had the battle with Harvick, went in, got some fresh tires, and ran the same lap times as Harvick, who was on 60 lap older tires than he was.
All right.
Held him up, gave Larson the win, and then immediately took off. If we want to talk about the Roval, I can fucking bring that up again, but that was more of a NASCAR thing than a chase thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But this is a worrying trend that NASCAR, I don't think, is going to put their foot down unless he comes out and verbally says, I spun it on purpose. And even at that, I think he's going to get a slap on the wrist.
And I want to say this is some big ass bullshit because we saw, what was it, 2 years ago? It was the 43 car at Texas with Bubba Wallace behind the wheel.
Oh yeah, he looped that.
He looped it very intentionally. NASCAR penalized him. Kyle Busch said something over the radio, and 3 weeks later, he did the same thing. He got penalized for it. So you got two of the biggest stars in racing who aren't the most popular driver, who are diverse amongst the fan group, and they do this, but it's not okay. And it's not okay. So I don't think they shouldn't have been penalized. I think they should have. But it's okay for the number 9 car to do it. That just doesn't sit right with me. But I will say this. Nathan, if you have any comments on the 9 thing, go ahead and say them because I've got another point to this.
Yeah, I think it's just weird in the sense that he almost I don't know what it is about him, but it seems like anytime he gets wronged, he just instantly goes into full meltdown mode. Like whatever it is. If you wrong him in any way, then he's going to try and alter the race. Like I thought it was weird that he swerved at Larson on the front stretch a couple laps before he spun, and just I don't understand it. I mean, I know that he's mad, but at whatever point you just take your medicine at that point. I don't really understand the idea of, I want to end this guy's race,
Right.
Or I want to take the race from this guy.
Well, yeah. even with Harvick coming back after him after Bristol, obviously it doesn't matter if you show or rear your head and you take the heel role as the villain of being, the guy who pushed around the most popular driver. Chase doesn't give a shit. I wouldn't go out right there and say that, but go ahead, Nathan. Fuck the Chase Elliott fans, I guess.
Yeah, I was just saying that it's weird in the sense that I do think Harvick had every right to get mad at him in Bristol because that was accidental contact, and Chase Elliott went out there and had a tantrum because of that.
Right.
So if this is going to happen for every racing incident, it's going to be really, really tiring, really, really quick.
So,
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So hats off to NASCAR though, because the only reason that he did that is he knew that they weren't going to call a caution because they didn't call a caution twice earlier. The 8 obviously had a flat tire. They would not have called a caution for him if the 24 did not get into him. And there was another car. I can't remember who it was. Was it the Bowman crash that they did not call a caution for?
Yeah.
And he went around and he got 2 laps down, but we stayed on the green.
Yeah, I think
it was a Bowman
because
crash.
he hit the wall like right when that all happened.
Right. And no caution for either of those two things. So hats off to NASCAR for that. But Chase Elliott taking that and saying, I'm going to lose more laps if I don't spin it, and then looping it. I mean, his arm had to itch. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. This kind of reminds me of I just got a new dog. When you're training a dog, you don't let it pee on the carpet. You don't let it chew on shoes. You nip that in the butt immediately. Otherwise, they're going to keep doing it. And that's what this is reminding me of. if NASCAR doesn't do something about it, whether this week or the next time it happens, because it will happen again, he's gonna keep doing it.
Yeah,
Nonstop.
I mean, he is the golden boy, and he's getting away with being the golden boy.
Yep.
And it's interesting that you guys pointed that out because I didn't really put all that stuff together. So, thank you guys for bringing that stuff up. But let's move on to our notes and what we kind of saw this weekend, and that was first of all a battle of attrition. So we saw a lot of stuff going wrong this weekend, but something that is just too familiar to myself and Nathan is TRD having engine struggles.
Oh yeah, I have an article on that up right now. So what happened is Toyota had problems with the radiators and they were overheating. So that happened to Christopher Bell, that happened to Kyle Busch, that happened to Hamlin. All of them spent a long time in the pits getting their stuff fixed. And a lot of it was because of the sand the track has. But after that, they mentioned that they lost about 10 horsepower because of that, because their engines were getting choked down essentially. So they kind of had a double whammy, and it wasn't good. I heard that David Wilson even said that he apologized to Joe Gibbs because it was quote unquote embarrassing to have all their cars have minor little problems that shouldn't have happened in the first place. Because obviously sand was going to be a problem. It always is there, but it seemed like it was only for them.
Right. And I know we were discussing stuff when we thought about maybe it was just because you have 4 or 5 different radiator pan sizes, covers that you can use in the next gen car. You don't have grill tape and you can't change these things throughout the weekend. You kind of show up and go. So initially I thought that. So something interesting that we saw was them using a leaf blower to re-blow the sand out the way it came in on pit road. And that wasn't the only interesting technique we saw on pit road. So Colton, what do you think about them having to make major wedge adjustments by taking up the hood and getting under the front suspension?
Do I use the word embarrassing or, disappointing more or less? Just because when I think of wedge, I think of a super quick adjustment you can do to either loosen the car up or tighten it up. It's something you can do in a 3-second pit stop. But now we have to go out, pop the hood, and move a whole bunch of shit around. It's taking more and more away from what made NASCAR so likable in the first place to newer fans, was how quick they could, alter these cars to make them handle better. So I don't know. We'll have to see how this plays out in the future. Maybe teams will get better at setting them up to begin with. But, it's always been a part of a long race. It's always been a part of handling, was adjusting on the fly. So I don't really like that.
So I'm going to go out of order here because you said teams will get better at setting them up in the first place. I have some big beef with NASCAR. We did not have enough practice this weekend. Am I alone in that opinion?
No.
I think we should just get rid of the second round of qualifying and replace that with extra 30 minutes practice.
I don't know that I would make that the answer, but I do not think that 15 minutes is enough. I think we saw guys go out and do one run, and that was it pretty much, both sessions. And then you got a trash car from the 4. So, I don't know. And then if you went behind the wall, you could not qualify. So what do you guys think about not seeing, I want to say there was 9 cars not get a chance to qualify for Sunday's race?
I don't know. I'm not a big fan of it. I don't want, I don't need like 3 days of practice, but at the same time, I don't need 15 minutes either. At that point, it's kind of trivial. It's not enough. I think that I don't understand why we're having multiple rounds of qualifying, because I think that if we're doing single car qualifying, then we should probably just have one round and replace that second round and add more practice time, because you still that gives you track time as a fan at the track, but it gives you more meaningful track time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a happy medium here between the long practice sessions that we got accustomed to over decades and this little 15-minute one. This 15-minute practice kind of reminds me of like when you're super hungry, but you don't really want to make anything, so you just kind of grab a little snack, and that doesn't do anything for you at all.
Right.
That's kind of what this is like. Like, it's more or less just a dog and pony show. Just get out there and say you did some practice. If you go behind the wall, you can't qualify. So what's the point in changing anything?
I don't know. I don't know. So Kyle Busch brought up the fact that he lives in a fantasy land, and I think I live in that same fantasy land with him because it bothered him that you can not show up with a shit car and a shit setup and be able to correct it. That is something that we saw be his detriment the last couple of years during this COVID time with no practice, because he's one of those guys that is very analytical, feels the race car, knows exactly how to fix it. And he could be junk on Friday, and by Sunday he's winning the race in a dominating fashion at that. So for me, I know I said this to you guys on Sunday, but the lack of practice is very much detrimental to the fan experience. I do not mind what we did on Saturday, but it is not enough. I don't mind the dual rounds of qualifying. I don't even mind splitting these guys up into groups for having 15-minute sessions. If that is what they want to do because they don't want to wreck race cars, that is fine. But I still think we need at least an hour and a half more practice. And if you did that with 15-minute sessions for two groups, these guys could have 15 minutes to work on their cars and then get out on the track for 15 minutes again, like they did at the LA Coliseum with those 8-minute sessions. And we could have 45 minutes of practice per car, plus the 15-minute practice / warm up for the qualifying. And I think we could do that all on Saturday. And you could have practice from 10 to 11:30 a.m. and then do practice qualifying for Xfinity or trucks, whoever's there, and then have your practice qualifying session for Cup and then the Xfinity or truck race. And I think we could do that for all three series. I mean, to me, going to a racetrack like they did this weekend and having a packed infield, but only having an hour's worth of track time for the Cup guys on Saturday, it's not worth it to me if I want to go see my favorite driver on track for 3 or 4 days, like we used to do. So a compromise I'd like to see is more practice on Saturday if they're all going to be 2-day shows.
Yeah, I agree with that completely.
So I guess that's Alex rants for this week. A little bit of a lighter one than usual, but I mean, I don't know. Not having all this track time and not being able to see somebody come in here junk and then come out and win the race, it's a little bit of an issue.
Disheartening.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know. It also, with fantasy lineups and sports betting being a big thing right now, having more practice would be beneficial to all the fans who are into that kind of stuff as well too. So it's not just the teams that are suffering because of it. So let's get into the package and how it works. Do you guys think that this was a package working, or this was a Fontana being multi-groove rough surface working?
Ooh. I think it's a little bit of both. I don't want to judge the package until we get to a place like the Coke 600 where it's kind of a narrow track. It's smooth. Because if it puts on a good race there, I think it's the real deal. So I was still encouraged, though. Like, if I had to judge it now, I'd say it's pretty good. It almost reminds me of a cross between 2018 package with the tiny spoiler on the Gen 6 and the original Gen 4. Like, it kind of reminds me of a cross between those two. So I think it's a good start. I'm sure they're going to tweak a little bit of things, and they're eventually going to stop spinning every 10 laps, but that just comes with the drivers learning how to drive it. So I think it's good. Like, I don't want to criticize anything yet because it's too early.
Yeah, I'm the same boat as Nate. I don't want to shit on this package quite yet, just because we haven't really seen it in a true form like we would see at Charlotte, like we would see it, say, Michigan. So if I give any praises here, I'm also not going to praise the package quite yet. I'm more so going to praise Fontana just because it did any good that the package did, this amplified it. I don't think that the Coke 600 is probably quite like this. But again, once we get to that point, like Nate mentioned, that'll kind of tell us whether or not it's the car or it's the track. This is looking 1,000% better than the 550 did. So I am all calm for that. I don't have to see cars go flat out through the corners and, playing air games and shit like that.
I think I
Go ahead.
think. Oh yeah, I think another point that I forgot to make is that Jeff Gluck said it. Not every race is going to be perfect. You could have a great rules package, and not every race can be perfect. So
Right.
I hope
Absolutely.
that fans realize that, and the moment that this package doesn't have a good race, I hope they're not like, oh, we need to change it now. Like just be patient.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of getting me to my point. I know that this race was phenomenal. I know that you guys have brought up it was because Fontana is a phenomenal racetrack. But I'm also a little bit scared. We're going to our first mile and a half this weekend with Las Vegas. It is a little bit rougher than what basically all of us are going to gauge as the fix to this package. And that was the shittiest race of the year the last 2 years in a row, the Coke 600. If
Can't
if
attest.
this
I
pack,
was at that race. Falling
Yeah.
asleep.
I can't. I can't go through another race like that, especially one at 600 miles. So until we see that race on Memorial Day weekend, I'm going to hold my judgment, but I'm also scared. I know a lot of fans of NASCAR are going to hate me for saying this, but I obviously race on iRacing. And this weekend in testing for the NIS series for Las Vegas, I noticed that there was not a lot of off throttle time. And if I can do that in sim, I'm sure the smart people and engineers in the real world can get us basically almost back to where we were for the 550 package. I was only lifting a little bit into the entry of both corners and then pegging the throttle. So I'm a little bit worried, honestly, that once we get to that smooth surface at Charlotte, it's not going to be that good of a race. So I have swinged really far in the last few weeks with the Speedway race and at Daytona and back with Fontana, and now I'm kind of like, okay, I'm taking it a week by week basis right now. I know Colton, you, myself, and my dad were all like, we're going to learn a lot in the first 6 weeks because we've got every type of racetrack. So I guess we'll revisit after Circuit of the Americas and see what we're saying, and then another 6 weeks later at the Coke 600. But until then, it's just going to be a base by base stuff. So let's get into the nitty gritty of the race itself. So there was a bunch of stuff happening, and everybody was vocal about one of those things, and that was the tire issues. So we all had our own opinions about what should be done after Daytona, and a lot of the stuff escalated despite NASCAR's brief fix of leaving the driver in the car to take him to pit road. So Nathan, I know you were the most
Yes, I'm the
vocal
most
about that on
vocal.
Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah, so everything's great, as Kyle Busch would like to say. I love seeing guys lose 5 laps because they spin. Just love to see it. But really, jokes aside, I think the biggest thing that's crazy about this is that when Bob Pockris says he's frustrated about something, then something's wrong. Like, he
Right.
never, ever criticizes the sport. So to see him do that, it's like, okay, maybe people are really mad about this, because apparently for him, this has been an issue since last year when they started testing these cars, and they chose to not fix it and just sit on it. So I get it. These things happen with a new car, but I'm more disappointed in the fact that they had a year to fix it and they just sat on it and did nothing. Like, if they would have just done this earlier, then this might not be as big of a problem.
Yeah, I agree. There's got to be a better way. There has to be, even if you just, don't take people laps down when they spin and just throw them out there. If they, once they get to pit road, you can start counting them. I don't know how you fix it, but there needs absolutely 100% needs to be a fix to this. Because without any contact, just losing a car shouldn't cost you any laps, really.
Yeah. And I don't know. It's a little bit frustrating. I know for me during practice, I saw a lot of these guys having to get the red flag out and stuff because they were popping tires and stuff. And I'm like, I'm just watching, and I'm like, if they would stop dragging the tires like that, just let the car roll and not brake, they would stop popping tires. And we saw that by the end of Sunday. We saw a bunch of guys not popping as many tires off self spins. So the drivers adapted to that. But now it's NASCAR's turn to adapt. As you're behind the wheel, stuff happens. You're going to run over debris. You're going to get into an accident that's not your doing. Whatever happens, you might even have a mechanical failure like they did in Daytona, where the rim is improper and you blow the bead or something. Who knows? But it's not fair. I think we can all agree for anyone to have to lose 3 to 7 laps because they're getting towed. So, I mean, what are your guys's fixes? I know you just said, Colton, about not counting laps for guys who get towed. But, I mean, what are some realistic fixes?
Ooh. Oh, man, this is tough because I know that a lot of the technical people have said that the realistic fixes are, number one, the wheel doesn't really work because they'd have to redesign the brakes and everything. Another one is interliners. I don't even think they're possible per what people are saying. So they're kind of backed themselves into a corner to where they waited so long to fix this until it just happens right at the beginning of the season. And now they're stuck with it for a long, long time. And that's why I would say that I'm not a technical expert. I don't have any reasonable fixes for this. And I think the only thing they could have done is, like I said, do it a year earlier.
Yeah, I agree. I
don't wait until the racing happens for it to.
I'm with Nate. I don't have the technical knowledge or know-how to know what needs to be done. Something does. I think an immediate fix is if a car spins, let them get back to pit road before you start counting them laps down. That'll at least cut it down from 3 to 7 to maybe 1 or 2. Just let the crews change the tires, get them back out there. Another quick fix would be, like we've seen a ton of people mention, just give all of the crew workers a jack and some tires and just let them go out there and replace the tires. But then you're still running into the whole, you're going several laps down, which that's really the issue here. If guys weren't going laps down at all for this, we wouldn't be talking about it. It would just be we need to fix this kind of thing, but it's not as urgent of an issue. Again, I don't know what the engineering standpoint is. Like Nate said, NASCAR's backed themselves into a corner. They're going to have to redesign this. It's not an issue of if, but when. So I don't know if that's something maybe they start on here in a couple weeks and start testing this summer to maybe get it rolled out by the fall, or if they just start it out complete next year and just I don't know if they just create an interim solution until then, but they're going to have to redesign this.
So I'm not sure that they're going to have to redesign the wheel, the hub assembly, the new brakes or anything. And I'm going to say this because I've watched plenty of sports car racing and plenty of supercars racing and GT racing for the last, I don't know how long that they've had these monolug wheel systems. Like none of them, when they get flats, have the problem of being beached on themselves. And they can all drive with those flats to their pit area. So I don't know what they can do to fix it from a car standpoint, but I feel like the sidewalls themselves just need to be strengthened. I think that's really it. The bead is obviously not holding up to lateral force, which makes sense. They're going to pop. We used to pop the larger sidewall tires as well. So the bead is probably not something that we're going to be able to fix. But the sidewall strength itself, despite only being 5 inches tall, should be rigid enough to carry a car. And I know that these cars are different because they've got the underbody and they've got the rub blocks on there because they want to prevent, this carbon fiber or whatever the diffuser and all that stuff is from ripping up because you can't fix it. And it's all, but I mean, I don't know. They've got to do something. I think it's going to be the sidewalls because I saw mentioned on Twitter today, someone said, well, what about if we have minimum ride heights? Well, that's not going to prevent anything because the tire's not connected to the suspension. So when it goes away, it's on the wheel, on the rim, not, doesn't matter where the suspension is. It's still going to hit those rub blocks on the bottom and be beached. So it's got to be the tires. It can't be anything else. It's got to be the tires that have to be fixed. It's going to be the easiest thing to fix and just put some more strength in the sidewalls. That for me, that seems to be the only way that we're going to fix it without getting expensive.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, that's why I always don't procrastinate. That's like a real life lesson right there,
Yeah.
because it's like a real example. Something I'm bad at, and after seeing that, I think it kind of motivates me to not procrastinate.
And it's 100% procrastination. They gave themselves an extra year to work on this car.
Right.
Yeah.
We were supposed to be running this last season.
Yeah. And I know.
Imagine if they did run it last season, all the flaws it would have.
I don't even want to think about that.
Man.
So, I mean, I know this is something we're going to have to deal with, but plenty of people, plenty of armchair racers like ourselves have come up with plenty of solutions to make the competition side not that, not to have that much detriment to it, because we can't have these guys going laps and laps down. But anyways, we'll get to the last part of the race. I do want to mention the finish. I think we had a 8-lap run to the flag. Maybe it was shorter than that.
About, yeah.
Yeah. So what did you guys think of that run and just enjoying a short run that wasn't a green, white, checkered?
Ooh,
Damn,
man.
Suarez almost had it.
I'm happy with that race. Good racing, first of all. I think it would have been good if it was a long run, too, because the 43 was actually catching the 8 before his tire went down. So it would have been good between those two as well. But I can't really complain about the last 8 laps. It was really good racing. Like you said, the 99 made a good run at it. He got a huge push from Jones. I did not expect him to hold the lead at all, but he did for about a lap or so until Larson went to the top and got a big run on him. So it was pretty cool. I really liked it. There was a lot of racing in the back that Fox never really got. They didn't show replays. I think Blaney made a ridiculous save on the last lap, and it was crazy. Like, it was good racing.
Yeah, it was refreshing to see.
Yeah, it was really good. I think it was very interesting being able to see Trackhouse on basically their second race as a standalone team. They're still alliance with the RCR guys, but they're in their own shop now. They have their own building and they have 2 teams. It was really interesting to see them go up and see them fight for something. And I kind of want to ask you guys about the comments that Daniel Suarez made post race. He said, "We're bringing fast cars. We're really good, and we're gonna win a lot of races one of these days." I mean, did you guys feel that after the last couple of years with him battling for these finishes?
That's going to be interesting. I think that it depends on how this team evolves more than anything. I think that he's kind of grown as a driver. I don't think he was ready the first couple of years of his career, so you kind of didn't see the results you're seeing now, and I think those years kind of prepared him for where he is right now. So I think that he's finally learning everything. He had a crazy first couple of years of his career, but now, I think he's settling in.
Yeah. Trackhouse they're going to be a player. They really are here. If not this year, definitely next year and the years to come. They look competitive, especially this last week. We know Ross Chastain has a ton of talent behind the wheel. Daniel Suarez, I think, has a little bit less talent, but he makes up for it by working hard and probably having more determination than most everybody in the field. I agree with Nate. We talked about it last week that there's a lot of examples of guys getting called up way too quickly and then just kind of getting shoved out as soon as they don't perform immediately.
Right, like they just weren't ready for it.
Right. Eric Jones is another one.
I do think Jones, I think he was ready. I just don't think he had the crew chief he needed.
And that's fair. And that's a discussion for down the road because he's going to get a win this year too. He's looking super competitive. I think Trackhouse is here to stay. They're here to fight. I'm waiting for him to get that first win. And I think Daniel's going to be the one to get it as much as I love Ross, and I think he has a ton of talent. I think Daniel's going to be the one to get it just because he's kind of been through the ringer already and he knows
it's pretty polished. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's learned what he's doing. And
yeah,
I think those early years getting kind of struggling at JGR and SHR, I think they really helped him. As bad as they were, I think they helped because they're learning experiences. That's the thing with the sport. And SHR, I do think that he deserved another year at SHR because he almost made the playoffs. But, I mean, that's another debate for another day. But I think that it all helped him to where he is now.
Yeah. And honestly, those years that he's been in Cup, he knows how to work with a good team. He knows how to drive a good race car. And I think that's what sets him apart from Ross Chastain. Ross, other than his year at Colleague, which he didn't do so hot at, by the way, was always in shit boxes. He has been grinding his way up through the worst equipment. And I think that he has, like you said, more talent than Daniel Suarez. He is probably going to have a better career stat line.
Yeah.
Once he gets under wraps what his situation is and how to manage that. But right now, Daniel Suarez, like you said, he's got the determination. He wants to be here. This is what he's doing best. He also wants to prove that the guys that got rid of him at JGR and SHR made a very bad decision. So I do not think that he is not going to have. I do not think that it is out of the possibility for him to have a multi-win season this year.
Yeah.
I do think that it's going to be interesting.
If I'm Trackhouse, I'm putting the franchise tag on him. I mean, if that were a thing in NASCAR, he's my guy. You know.
Yeah, like I think he's getting so. I think he kind of reminds me of like I don't know, maybe like a Pierre Gasly type situation to where wasn't quite performing that well on the big team, probably because he wasn't ready for it. But you put him on a smaller team, you let him take his time for a few years, and he gets better. So I think it's going to be a lot more upward now that it took him that time, because I think you look at Chastain's scores are kind of opposites, whereas Chastain, he's like just raw talent. He just gets in the car, whatever. Whereas Suarez, he's kind of a late bloomer. He needs time to get going. So I don't know. I'm excited. I didn't expect them to be this good already, because last year they started the year really good and then they kind of just tapered off. So
yeah.
After that really good run at Bristol Dirt, he kind of
just fell off, man.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, it was a good race. Should be a good season. The next gen platform is looking like it's going to do what it's supposed to do. We just have these really big issues to work out. Once we get those worked out, we'll be good. Another thing that was said on the Fox broadcast is they basically postponed this track getting turned into a short track. So I think that was a big win for me. Do you guys see that as well?
I don't know. It's tough.
Yes and no, just because Fontana did put on an immaculate race. However, I look into the future. You're going to have to repave this track definitely within the next 5 years, if not a little bit sooner than that. I don't want them to turn it into a Michigan 2.0 for the next 10, 12 years and just make it single groove by repaving it. If they keep the current layout, they're going to have to do that. They're going to have to spend the money and repave it, or they're going to have to spend the money and convert it to a short track. I don't know which one I would rather prefer. I don't necessarily want to see this Fontana go away. I definitely think we can at least get another 2 years out of it. But if you're going to repave, I vote for the short track.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, I don't want to see the 2 miler go, but at the same time, wait as long as you can until it's finally done. Like, don't do it right now.
Well, I think we don't have to worry about them ruining this track in particular. I think it's going to be along the lines of a Darlington repave. It's going to age a little bit quicker than usual. If they do it right and they don't mess with anything like our friends at SMI continue to do when they repave tracks, I think we will see a few years of not so good subpar racing, but I think it would come back quicker depending on the cars we put on track. So.
Yeah, I got to make a comment, though. Michigan, that was probably ruined by the repave, because apparently they gave it a special surface to last through the harsher winters, and it has never been the same. It's been 10 years, and the surface has not aged a bit.
Right.
Like, it's still one groove, and it's like, you think about what Michigan used to be. You used to run the wall at Michigan if you wanted. Now you can't. It's been 10 years. It's just kind of sad.
If they do it right, it'll be great. If they do it wrong, it'll be gone before the 5th year of a new surface. So I hope they don't turn into a short track. I think that we should have more short tracks. I think that we could build one in the area of Southern California, from below the Bay, Sacramento, all the way down to the border. I think we could do that. I think we could make a 3/4 mile Martinsville Bristol hybrid like they want to, but I just don't want to get rid of what we've got at Fontana. It's a great place for camping. It's a great place to watch a race, I'm sure, and great on TV. So no reason for me to get rid of it as of this moment. But with that being said, we're about wrapped up. Do you guys have any final thoughts for this weekend in Vegas before we shut it off?
Oh man, I want to make a comment about Vegas's last low downforce race with the hot temperatures back in 2018 fall. It was a super good race. I'm hoping to see more of that again because this is the first time in 3 years that we've had low downforce there. And I think Vegas is coming into its own. I don't think it was as good in the last couple of years, but ever since 2017, 2018, the surface it's gotten older. It's widened out a little bit. Even in the 550 package, you see guys running the top. So I think Vegas is going to get better and better, kind of like Chicagoland did.
Yeah. Nate, I want to point out something you said, and I'm going to point out why this isn't going to be as good of a race as 2018 fall, and it's the word fall.
Right, you're right. Yeah, temperature.
60 degrees on Sunday. It's going to be cool temps. I think the fall race is, depending on how they do this time, the fall race is probably going to be a banger. But with the really cool temps in Vegas, you got to think it's just sat all winter. The track doesn't have any heat in it. That's kind of what makes the fall race so good is the track just absorbs heat all summer long, and it's still super hot during the day.
I will make one counterpoint, though, is that in 2018, that same year, Kansas in the spring was a night race, and it was still super good. So there's hope.
Yeah. There is
hope for this package.
I'm optimistic.
Yeah.
Like I haven't been this optimistic about a mile and a half in a long time.
Yeah. I told you guys last year that I think this car could be, if they did it right, the answer to all of our problems on intermediate racetracks. So I think that we're still going to see a pretty decent race. But like Nate said at the top of the show, fans have to understand that if a race is not a banger, does not mean the race is not good. We saw a banger on Sunday at Auto Club. We did. That was a great race. One of the best that we've seen in the last 3 years. But that doesn't mean that if that doesn't happen on Sunday at Las Vegas that we're going to see a shit race. You can have a race with a lull in either one of the three stages and still have great racing. It's going to be up to the coverage to show you that if it's not happening up front through the field, and then also whether or not you know what to look for, because there's a lot more to racing than passing and other things like that. So if you want us to educate you about that, I'm sure we could probably all do a show about what we like to see that's not very pretty when it comes to good racing. I think that could be up for a good show here in a couple of weeks. We might have a special guest with us next week. We are still working on that. We will throw that on our socials if we do. And for that, you can follow us at FanFuel MSM, capital F, capital F, capital MSN on Facebook and Twitter, all lowercase on Instagram. And of course, check out our YouTube channel as well, or look down low below. Nate scrolling down there. You can be a part of the action at fanfuelmotorsports.com. You can look at his article on the a website that he put out this week. And I'm sure we'll have some more stuff coming in the next couple of weeks as we get into the swing of things, since IndyCar is back and Supercars should be starting up here shortly as well. So everything's going real good around the world in motorsports. So other than that, we'll see you back here at 7:30 next week unless anything changes. And thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. All right. Bye.